Good
Yeah,
afternoon, everyone, and warm welcome to you. This has been a wonderful summit so far. My name is Tamara Cunningham. I am the Associate Vice President for Global Initiatives at New Jersey City University, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome you to the Black Men in Study Abroad panel for this Global Leadership Summit. I want to give a shout out to Leaders of the Free World for inviting us to partner with you. It's a wonderful opportunity to be your partner. And I come in and step into the game today with three leaders in higher education, gurus who have been doing study abroad and focus on study abroad for quite some time. So I'm going to go ahead and just jump right in and ask them to introduce themselves. And we're going to start with Dr. Devin Walker. Devin, over to you.
All right, how you doing? Happy to be here. My name is Dr. Devin Walker. I work at the University of Texas at Austin, where I direct the Office of Global Leadership and Social Impact. Happy to be here.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Devin. We'll go over to you, Marcus King.
yeah, sure. So, likewise, also very happy to be here. My name is Marcus King. I currently help manage the Study Abroad office at Prairie View A&M University. We're a HBCU of about 9,000 students right outside of Houston, Texas, for those who may be unfamiliar. But yeah, I've been here working in the Study Abroad office for the past 4 years. So look forward to our conversation today.
Wonderful. Thank you, Marcus. And last but not least, Dr. Shakir Abdullah. Shakir?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for hosting us tomorrow. And really, thank you to everyone for this opportunity to talk with you. Dr. Shakir Abdullah. I've worked in higher ed for the last 20 plus years, most recently as the Vice President of Student Affairs at Clayton State University. It's just south of Atlanta. Transitioning to a new role in the corporate world next week. So it's going to be an interesting transition for me, but happy to talk with you all and really kind of share my experiences with study abroad and all the experiences I've had in higher ed and why, really studying abroad is such a transformative process, particularly for Black men in higher ed.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful to the three of you for being here today. You know, in the earlier sessions, folks have made reference and panelists have made reference to the importance of studying abroad and getting that passport, et cetera. But we know that the literature shows that Black men, male students, are not studying abroad or taking advantage of education abroad experiences like their peers or counterparts in other areas. So I just want to know, how did you get involved in the work of study abroad, specifically in higher education? What was your journey, and why do you think that this topic is so important, especially now? Why don't we start with you, Marcus?
Sure. I'm also a two-time alumnus of Prairie View. So I did undergrad and graduate school here as well. And when I was in undergrad, we didn't even have a study abroad office on our campus. So study abroad was completely not on my radar. I was a mechanical engineering major, and so I was focused on getting those internships. But in 2013, while I was still in the engineering business, I started a company called Hardly Home, which really initially was just a creative outlet to document my travels, places I was going, and the things I was doing. And a few years into that, it really just kind of morphed and grew into a travel brand and business, which I later decided to implement a social component to. And so I set out to sponsor 100 high school and college students with passports to study abroad, knowing what type of impact my own travel experiences had had on me personally, and wanting to give back in that sense. And so that was the path that led me to being introduced to the world of international education, the world of study abroad. And that's how I got introduced to organizations like NAFSA and Diversity Abroad, the Institute of International Education. And so I did a little more digging, and I'm like, oh, wait, hold up. People get paid to do this? For me, something that I instantly, I could see myself, I can envision myself doing that as
Sure.
something that I would be happy doing as well. And so essentially how I got my foot into the door here at Prairie View. Just started networking, started working on my resume, and reaching out to people, having conversations, and it led to an opportunity to come to my alma mater. Couldn't think of a better place to do this type of work at.
Fantastic, Marcus, and congratulations on that Hardly Home. That's wonderful that now you get paid to do the work of being hardly home, but also giving opportunities for Black male students to be hardly home as well. Shakir, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background, how you got into this work, why it's important to you?
Absolutely. So I became familiar with study abroad way back in high school. My best friend spent a year in Spain. That was the first time I really understood that that was an opportunity. And then when I was in undergrad, I played football. So I felt like I can't really leave, but I had a roommate who was one of my fraternity brothers, and he spent a year abroad. And so he shared his experiences. He introduced us to people he had met from other countries. And really, I was just excited about that opportunity, but I never did it as an undergrad. But prior to starting grad school, I had a chance to visit the Dominican Republic. My best friend, the one I told you about, who uh, studied abroad in high school, he was living in the Dominican Republic. So I had a chance to go and visit with him for a little more than a week, and it was just like, wait a second, this is a whole different world. I was in the
Yes.
country, and I spoke Spanish well enough, and the people there thought I was Dominican. And so this was the first time I had a shift in my worldview. I'm like, you don't see that I'm a Black man from America? They're like, you lying. They told me you're like mentirosa. And I, and I had to explain to them, no, I'm serious. I'm really from the United States. And it was just an amazing experience. And then the spark was lit. And so when I was in graduate school at Ohio State, I spent the summer abroad traveling Europe. And then I also had a chance to travel abroad to Egypt before I finished my master's program. And I was set. I was hooked. I decided when I was in Europe that I wanted to get a PhD because everything I thought I knew about the world
Right.
Was wrong, and it was just
Right.
the lens that I had looked through was so limited. Right, it was just a U.S. centric perspective, right? And I thought that racism and all of those things would make it difficult to be abroad, but the reality is that the racism in the United States is there's no other place that has the kind of racism that the U.S. has. So you actually feel a burden lifted off of you once you go to these other places. And people
Yes.
see you as an individual, and
Yes.
they want to know who you are. And it was amazing because I mean, like I said, in the Dominican, they thought I was Dominican. I got to Egypt and they thought, "Oh, you're from Italy." I'm like, "What?" I'm a Black man from America. What are you talking about? And then when I was working on my PhD at Auburn University, I spent some time in Malawi in Southern Africa, and it was just I looked around and I was like, "Oh, this guy looked like my brother, looked like my cousin."
Wow.
So they thought that I was. From there, they would speak to me in Chichewa, and I only had a couple words, and it was amazing because they were like, "Wait, you're not from here?" And it was so amazing to me to kind of have that experience and to talk with folks, and it was interesting too because language is curious, right?
Sure.
One of the words that is used for foreigner in Malawi is I've forgotten the word, but it translates to ghost people. And I was saying, "Hey, I'm ghost people," and they were like, "Well, no, you're
Wow.
not. You're from America, but you ain't the ghost people."
Wow.
And it was
Wow.
it was really interesting to me to kind of have those experiences. And my initial dissertation topic was going to be the impact of study abroad on Black men. I wanted to
I want you to hold that thought though, because we're going to go into
No
that.
worries, no worries, no worries.
I want to get Devin's kind of
Okay.
perspective here and bring him into the conversation. But before I do that, Shakir was talking about all of these places that he's been. I want you to drop in the chat where you have been if you've gotten the opportunity to study abroad, and if you haven't, where do you want to go, right? Because we're going to manifest this even now during this session, that where you want to be, you will get there. And so, Devin, why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got introduced to study abroad and why this work is important?
Cool. So I studied abroad 3 times as an undergrad, but the impetus for that started when I was 12. I remember going to world history class in like the 6th grade, and finally getting excited to learn something about Africa. And, you know, the first few weeks we started doing European history. I'm like, yo, we do this every single year, right? And I knew Africa was the next session. So I was excited. I kept getting excited. But it just kept going Europe. We did 11 weeks of Europe. Finally, we get to Africa. So I'm thinking, cool, we're going to do 11 weeks of Africa. I was ready. I remember came with like a button-up shirt that Monday. I was ready. And we did a week. And it devastated me, you know, and I started developing this consciousness about like what I represented, what my identity represented in this country and what it didn't represent. And so at that point, when I was 12, I was like, man, I'm going to go to Africa for myself one day. Like, I'm going to go. So when I finally got to college, you know, I went to Canada to study French so I could go to like some countries in West Africa. So that was my first study abroad experience. It was really cool. It was actually the most challenging of any of them because of the language barrier. I got back to Wisconsin, go Badgers. I see Ohio State over there. So I got back to Wisconsin and I wasn't really feeling continuing learning French. And I saw a program in Cape Town, South Africa. It was the university's on the side of a mountain. It looked beautiful and I could get away with English. I was like, yo, that's the spot.
Right.
I applied. I didn't even have housing for the next semester. And I got denied.
What?
I was devastated. I'm like,
okay, you might get denied the first time, but
you might get, but I'm like at Wisconsin, y'all got like 17 Black people. How you not gonna let me go to Africa? Like of all people at this university, right? The program was completely white.
Did they say why they denied you?
Because I was a junior and there was apparently enough I was a junior and apparently there was enough seniors who you know got it. But I had, you know, I had a solid enough GPA.
Okay.
So that was really one of the first times like I failed miserably in my personal life, but it turned out to be the best thing for me. I kept going up there, knocking on the door, like I'm going somewhere. Mind you, I didn't even have
on the doors. Keep knocking on the doors.
And they said, hey, we got this program that we manicure. We could send you to England. I'm like, England, like, please. But, you know, I was like, you know, you got to take opportunities, right? If one door closes, you got to take the next opportunity. So I went there and it turned out to be the best thing for me. I really learned how to travel. I learned how to backpack. It's really easy to navigate Europe. So I did a lot of little backpacking trips and I developed this identity of like a traveler in a different way than I had when I went to Canada. Went to like Greece and Turkey for like a 7-day trip. That was like my first real backpacking trip. So then when I finally got back to Wisconsin, I applied again my senior year and I did my last semester of college as an exchange student at the University of Cape Town in South Africa. Incredible experience. There's nothing like an exchange program. And from there, I was always telling people and I was always influencing those around me. Like my two best friends in college, both Black males, they ended up going abroad. My little brother, he ended up going abroad for a year in Mexico. And my older brother, when he was in law school, he went abroad. So I realized that when we become the ambassadors, right, when we're the narrative, that it changes people and encourages people to want to go.
Right.
So that was at the core of like how I eventually got into this work.
So I wanna kind of transition to the work now, right? So the work that you all do in your respective capacities, and I know, Shakir, that's changing a little or shifting a little bit for you, but you're still going obviously to be doing that work in some capacity. We know that there are barriers for Black men in particular, male students, to go abroad, right? And I want to talk a little bit about identifying what those barriers are, and then maybe speak to what you all are doing in your official capacities and maybe unofficial capacities, right? Because I feel like I'm on all the time working for our people to help to get our Black men and women abroad. What are you doing in your capacities, official or unofficial, to address these issues? So I know that Shakir wanted to talk a little bit about his dissertation and the work that he's done. Shakir, why don't we start with you and then we'll swing back to Marcus on this. But if you could just tell us quickly what you think some of the barriers are and then quickly what you are doing to kind of address it in your capacity.
No, absolutely. I think the barriers are lack of awareness. I would say lack of dollars, but there are resources out there that help folks to study abroad. So the main thing is is lack of awareness. And I've worked at a number of different universities. I was at the University of Minnesota for a number of years, and I worked directly with our learning abroad unit to raise awareness for learning abroad opportunities, particularly for students of color. I actually raised dollars in my role in the Office of Equity and Diversity that would be strictly dedicated to helping purchase passports, get more students aware of these different opportunities, because really awareness is the number one thing. And I think the other piece too is just telling our stories, and I share my stories of where I've gone and how I was received at different places. And those stories help people feel like, hey, there is a space and some room for me to actually study abroad and really thrive.
Sure. Marcus?
Yeah, sure. So I have a very similar answer, because I think we just don't know what we don't know, right?
Mm.
And so I think there's definitely a knowledge gap about the opportunities to study abroad, and as Dr. Abdullah mentioned, like how to fund them. And so we need to fill that gap by spreading the word and having these conversations. One thing that I can speak to, that in our office, we employ previous students who've studied abroad. I currently have a black male graduate assistant, and also a black male student worker. And so when students come into our office, they're kind of that first point of contact, who can speak to their experiences in the Dominican Republic, their experiences in London. And then so when the students get to me, I can just kind of fill in the gaps again, and help point them in the right direction. But beyond that, coming from a small office at a HBCU where I'm at, a new office at that, only having been established in 2015, a lot of the barriers and challenges that I see here are they're systemic. And so study abroad isn't one of those things that just happens overnight. Like, there's a lot of preparation that goes into it, 6 to 12 months in advance of when the students actually travel.
Yes.
So there's a lot of coordinating with numerous offices on campus, from advisors and departments to risk management, financial aid, et cetera. And so what I spend a lot of time focusing on is making sure that we've got a solid process and system in place, and relationships with these different departments on campus, so that when we need to get stuff done, if I need an approval for somebody or ready to purchase flights for somebody, it's easy to pick up the phone, call, and get it done, and avoid the obstacles that students may face fall into.
Marcus, I appreciate that, because I realize that there at institutions of higher learning, there are a lot of institutional barriers, right, to studying abroad, just for students in general. And then when we really talk about Black male students specifically, that adds another layer onto the barriers, right? Why don't you drop in the chat some of the barriers that you found to studying abroad, if you can? Just think about maybe what has kept you from studying abroad if you haven't had the opportunity to study abroad, and put it in the chat if you feel comfortable. Devin, what do you think? What are some of the barriers, and what are you all doing to address these?
I think the number one barrier is that oftentimes the international offices have a deficit-based perspective on Black men. They come up with all these reasons why they don't want to go, instead of focusing on the reasons why they do want to go.
Right.
So similar to Dr. Abdullah, my dissertation was on Black male Division I athletes, Black male athletes, and their study abroad experiences. And the reason why I did that is just to show the world, like, hey, people are doing it. Students do want to do it, and they're having these robust experiences, because oftentimes the narratives just aren't out there. And I realized from my own experience at Wisconsin, I didn't know any other Black dudes who studied abroad. But once I did, I became the conduit, and I was telling everybody, and most of my sphere of influence studied abroad, right? So I think some of the things that we do here at the University of Texas is, we really try to center the needs of Black students when we develop our program. So, like, what does that mean? 33% of study abroad students go to 3 countries, all in Europe. all that are infamous for colonization and dehumanizing Black people.
Right.
So why do Black males want to go there? Right. So how about we develop programs in other parts of the world that might speak more to our identities, right? So, you know, we have a program in South Africa. I'm building out some stuff to Ghana, to Senegal. In 2 weeks, I'm taking a group of like 75 students to Dubai, and 20 of them are Black males. 20 of them. Right. So I think that
wait, Devin, stop there. I'm going to stop you, because that is not the case on a lot of college campuses. I will tell you that we've partnered with Leaders of the Free World to try to get Black men to go to Ghana for free. We said you have to pay $0. So what are you doing in your marketing? How are you encouraging Black men to, what's happening there? Because obviously yours is a success story. That is not the case at a lot of colleges and institutions and universities, and we have to acknowledge that.
Yo, let me come holler at them brothers first.
Please come holler at the brothers.
First off, but two, I think that's what we do a lot here on campus. Like, I'm always in and around campus. I've been positioned very well by my higher up, Dr. Moore, who's a big proponent of education abroad. He has a lot of students in front of him. He's extremely captivating. So he's the biggest reason why I think we get students to go abroad. But we've been able to build it out outside of him, right? 1 year, he took some students to South Africa. I took 40 students to China. And again, we had substantial amounts of Black students. I think what's important is building a culture on campus where instead of like, oh, have you heard of study abroad? It becomes like, yo, where are you going abroad?
I love it. I love it.
So my first few years on campus, I was reaching out to all the Black student organizations, the BSA, the Black male groups. Right. You know, I would speak anywhere, and I still would speak anywhere.
You're coming to speak. You're coming to speak at NJCU. I just want you to know. You're coming
to
speak there. All right. All right. All right.
And but what I've realized in the last couple of years is now these organizations, instead of me reaching out to them, they reach out to me like, yo, can you come? You got 10 minutes. I'm like, 10 minutes? What you gonna do with the rest of the 45 minutes? They're like, yo, we got all these alumni. We got all these other students who want to speak about their experience.
Right.
So
right.
What's happened is we've created a culture on campus where students are now talking to other students about their education abroad experiences. And, you know, like most people, you don't want to be left out. You don't want to be the one person who's not doing what everybody else is doing. And it does take a while. It takes a lot of work to build that sense of culture. And obviously, over the last 2 years with COVID, we were fearful that it was going to break.
Sure.
But it didn't. You know, we kept being in front of students. We kept talking about the influence. And as we continue to build out new programs, we bring these students into the conversation, right? And I think that makes a big difference, because if you help me plan a trip to Dubai, how are you not going to go, and how are you not going to tell your peers?
Sure. Okay. So changing the way that we market it and the language that we're using to kind of show that students are studying abroad and that there are opportunities, and not focusing really on the barriers or who's not going. Let's focus on where you're going, when you're going, right? And then kind of putting it out there in that way.
And how you're experiencing it, right? Like, what is the development, the personal, the professional? We have one of our Black dudes. He was an up and coming filmmaker after his first year.
Wow.
We were like, yeah, you could document the trip. His freshman year, he did it, and it was incredible. He came back with so much confidence after that trip. He said, look, man, I know you're going to China next year. Why don't you pay me to go on that trip with you, and I'll make you another documentary?
Wow.
At first, I was kind of like, dude, this dude swag is crazy.
I love it.
But we ended up doing it. And what his videos do is they really capture the experience from a Black male. Right? Like, what is the benefit of going abroad? And again, that takes some initial investment. We had to pay for him to go abroad, but those videos are quite priceless.
So at your institutions, are you connecting this to the curriculum at all? I mean, I know we talked about, you know, maybe going back to our roots and visiting those regions in particular that we identify with, or that Black men identify with first, right? Are you connecting these study abroad opportunities to the curriculum for African and African American studies, or Black men? What is happening with regard to the curricular component?
And so
if anything,
I'm going to jump in, because I think one of the things we've got to acknowledge that Dr. Walker and the University of Texas at Austin has some serious resources, right? Not every institution is going to have those resources. But we can partner. Institutions can partner, and you don't have to do a program at your particular school. You can do programs from other schools, and I think that's critical to help students understand. And the other piece too is that these opportunities abroad really are course agnostic, right? They don't have to be specifically tied to an AFAM studies or
Okay.
anything like that.
Mhm.
You know, I talked about my time in Malawi. That was actually with pre-service educators,
Ah,
right? And
okay.
so the reality is that it can be connected to any curriculum, and so folks can't let their major be an excuse for them not going, right? Some people are like,
Good.
well, you
Good.
know, oh, I'm going to miss this
That's
course
good.
in this way, and I think that's why you know, Marcus talked about this is a, you know, 6 to 12 month pre-planning. You've got to
Right.
be deliberate, right? Because you got to make sure all the credits you need are going to transfer. You want to make sure that all the credits you need are going to keep you on track to graduation. So that is a critical piece, and I think people have to pay attention to that. But I think the key is not to turn your course of study into an excuse for not studying abroad or not spending time abroad. So I mean, I really appreciate kind of hearing this. This is a 3 hour panel, right? Because we get to talk.
I
You
was
know,
gonna say we need more time. I think Leaders of the Free World only gave us about 10 minutes, but
no
you know, we
worries.
want to go on and on. I really do want to get to, and I appreciate that, Shakir, that comment. I want to get to the chat and I want to get to the comments because I want to really engage the students who maybe might be fearful about studying abroad or who have study abroad opportunities, who might have questions for you about what the experience might be like or what they can expect. So if anyone has a question, please go ahead and drop it in the Q&A section or in the comments, and we'll go ahead and try to address your comments. I want to go to Marcus, though. I know that Marcus talked about the procedures and how to get there, right? And the importance of planning. And I want Marcus to kind of give us what looks like a timeline, right? For someone who's considering going abroad, what would be the timeline? I mean, we have freshmen who come in and they want to study abroad, and you know, there are policies sometimes that are in place that you can't travel your first semester, or you have to wait a full semester or a full year, et cetera. So what should students be doing now to plan, and what is the timeline to study abroad?
Yeah, sure. So I recommend starting the process 12 months in advance, a year in advance. So even if you're coming in as a freshman, you likely can't study abroad that first or second semester. But when that summer rolls around, but before you start that sophomore year, that's prime spot,
Okay.
prime time uh,
Sure.
for students to start studying abroad. Um, and I would say I've got a couple of thoughts like all clashing, but in terms of when it comes to like internships, you can do internships abroad, but those career fairs are competitive. So if you're studying abroad, say like earlier in your undergraduate career, that's
Uh-huh.
something that you can put on your resume
Excellent.
and have to talk about during those interviews, so you could get those paid internships.
Excellent.
Even if it doesn't work out, say your freshman year though, you already know what the process is by this time. You've likely written some scholarship essays. If it doesn't work out, just brush those up, reapply the next year.
Okay.
Um, the one more thing I would say too, for sure, be very aware of the scholarship deadlines.
Hmm.
Gilman scholarship is, as far as I'm concerned, the study abroad scholarship, though it does have a requirement to be Pell eligible, so receiving a Pell grant. But there's an application cycle for that in the fall semester. Usually around deadline is middle of October, and there's another one in the spring semester. That deadline for this year is March 1st. Um, but beyond that, the last thing I'll leave you all with to kind of think about is know your degree plan. Please know your degree plan. Understand what courses you need to graduate. So when you're searching for a program, you can kind of zero in on those options. Um, at Prairie View, most of our students study abroad through faculty-led
Okay.
opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
Probably 80% of all our students do that. And so those for us are short-term
Yep.
programs, a week or two type field trip. And then the other students
And
will also study abroad for like a semester or a summer.
And Marcus, those short-term programs happen during spring break, right? They happen during the summer. They happen during winter session, right? So these are opportunities for students to travel during those times when school is not actually in session, right?
Absolutely. And
Great.
the last thing I'll say on this subject is going back to knowing your degree plan, if you have unrestricted electives within your major, so basically you can take any course and have that count towards your degree plan because it's open. It's not restricted in terms of you having to take a particular class or set of courses. It can be
Okay.
whatever you're interested in. Save those for when you know you want to study abroad. Don't take those unrestricted elective courses on your campus if you know you want to study abroad. It's going to open the door for so many more opportunities and programs for you to choose from.
Excellent. Excellent. There's a question, and thank you so much for that, Mark. It's very, very helpful. Good information there. What are some of the surprises you encountered studying in Africa that you could think of that could help prepare other Black men? This is from Godlove, Marcus's colleague. Hi, Godlove. Shout out to Godlove. For those of you who did travel to Africa, where did you go specifically on the continent, number one? And then what could you think of that could help others to prepare for that experience? And shout out to Leaders of the Free World going to Ghana in July. A couple of our students are going with them, so we're excited about that. Thank you for the opportunity, LFW. All right, gentlemen, over to you. I don't know who wants to take this.
So I'll just say, one of the things you may run into are stereotypical expectations. I remember being in Egypt and, they wanted me to rap and, curious stuff like that. But
Wait,
you
didn't have bars?
No, I had bars. I was just trying to help them understand that, it wasn't just about bars, right?
Right.
You got all kinds of other stuff. And I think that's one of the things you just run into because people have some stereotypical understandings of Americans. Mm-hmm. And it also manifested itself in some negative ways for Black women who were with us. There were perceptions of Black women. And so, we say now protect Black women. I had to do that on my trip because people were a little bit reckless because of the expectations and things like that. So those were some of the things that you just prepare yourself to deal with stereotypes and different things like that. And yes, you should have some bars in your pocket just to show that. Even though I'm a scholar, you know what I'm saying? I can drop a little bit of knowledge in some.
Come on, kick something for us real quick. Let's hear it.
Off the top of my dome, I'm already at home, so I got to slow down so I don't get too gone.
All right. Oh gosh, that was good. Devin, what about you? What insight do you have here?
So for me, I feel like, and I oftentimes share these stories with students, I think traveling in general, but especially going to Africa, forced me to confront my privilege, my American privilege. What does it mean to be a Black American internationally and the association of whiteness and global privilege? And that was very uncomfortable for me. I remember, so when I was studying abroad in South Africa, I remember I took this 18-hour train from Cape Town to Johannesburg, because I was supposed to go up through Zimbabwe to Zambia, and then I was waiting for this bus. I was waiting for 12 hours at the bus, African time. And then finally get on the bus. I'm on a 26-hour bus, and I start talking. And at this point, Western Cape Town is very diverse looking, but in Johannesburg is, it's Black folks. And so I'm very light skinned, right? So I'm traveling with this white dude I met at the university, and we're talking. I say something about being Black, and this Black dude behind me taps me on my shoulders, African dude, and he's like, "Yo, man, you ain't Black." Mm-hmm. I'm like, "Wait, what?" I'm like, "Nah, I'm a little light skinned, but my daddy's Black, in America." I started trying to do the whole explanation thing.
My daddy, if the daddy is Black.
Yeah, I'm like, my daddy told me every time you walk out this house, you don't only represent yourself, you represent your family, you represent the entire Black race, right?
Right.
I'm telling him all this, like, no. You're not Black. And he's like, pull out your sleeve. I roll down my sleeve. He rolls down his. Then he tells the white boy to roll down his. He's like, look, you are American, and your skin is almost like his.
Wow.
And I remember being so frustrated and in my own feelings for the next couple hours on this 26-hour bus ride. But once I got over myself, I engaged him in a conversation, and he was telling me, he was like, yo, you have privilege, right? What it means to be a Black American over here, right?
Wow.
Is privilege, the association. And that was the first time I had to confront my own identity and their privilege associated with it. And I think so often we ask white folks in this country, check your privilege, be aware of your privilege. And oftentimes us as Black Americans, we're not aware of the certain privileges that come along, especially when we're traveling globally. Okay, in this country, we are oppressed by whiteness, but the same global white supremacy in a weird way privileges us when we're traveling. And so when I share these stories with the students, I think it engages them, it challenges them, and I think they want to kind of experience something similar,
Well,
right?
my first thought when you said you rolled down your sleeve, and this gets to the point of getting over ourselves, right? Because I wanted to know, well, why did you feel like you had to do that, right? But this is what opens up conversations, right, for us to be able to get over ourselves. So we're learning, right, in these places where we are traveling to. So I think that that's an important piece. And Venida Rodman Jenkins at our university does a wonderful session on cultural humility, where you're going into these other regions and you have to come from a space of being humble enough, right, to be able to have these conversations with people who have a certain perception of who you are as an American Black man, right? We have these perceptions of Africans when they come to America, right? And so having those conversations, I think, are important. Very, very important, Devin. I interrupted you, but go ahead and finish your thought.
No, I think I'm good. I don't remember what I was saying.
Like I said, we needed 3 hours because the same thing happened to me in Europe, and I'm like, "What are you talking about? I didn't vote for that person." They were like, "You American," and I was like, "Wait a second." And then I'm not a little guy, so they were like, "Oh, we know you're American. You're too big," and I was like,
"Yeah,
wow, okay."
So we have another question in the chat from Jennifer Gregan. I hope that I'm pronouncing your last name properly. Can you provide examples of study abroad destinations and programs that would appeal to this group of students? Locations, structures of the experience, what it could possibly look like?
I'll jump in there real quick. So we have programs to South Africa, Beijing, China. I have just developed this one. This is the first time I'm leading it to Dubai. The other two we run through the university, Texas. This Dubai one I'm running myself. So there's no intermediary. I'm literally dealing directly with, the transportation service, the hotel, everything. I'm the conduit. And the reason why I did that is twofold. One, because it makes it a hell of a lot cheaper for students, right? Everybody wants to eat off the pie. But if you're centering Black students, not to say that all of us come from impoverished backgrounds, but a fair amount of us are first generation college students. We ain't got a bunch of money to be spending for someone else to be doing the work. So what that means is, I'll kind of get in there and do a lot of that work.
Okay.
And two, it allows me to expand the program out to any other universities. As Dr. Abdullah mentioned, like, we do have a lot of resources here. So how do we leverage the resources at the university and make them available for the community?
Sure.
So this is the first year we're running the program, but we do have a student from University of Houston, all 4 Black males. Okay. One from the University of Houston, one from Cal Berkeley, and 2 from North Carolina A&T. And we hopes that in years to come, we can continue to build this type of programming out and make it easier for students from other institutions who may not have the same infrastructure.
Devin, how do we get information on how institutions can join that so that students can have access to this?
That's a great point. You like 3 steps ahead of where I'm at.
I'm already there. I just want to, we want to give the students tangible resources to be able to join these programs, right?
Yeah, certainly.
In earlier sessions, I saw in the chat, they were like, how do I get this information? Where do I go? Who do I talk to? They're hungry for it. So we need to be able to give them the answer. So we need to provide those resources to LFW so that they can, certainly send it off. But definitely that's a great program, and good luck with your trip in Dubai. Shakir, Marcus, anything? Places to go?
Yeah, I'll jump in. So I would say literally, like, wherever your heart desires. So like whatever you're into, there's a program for you. Like literally whatever your major is, minor is, or just interest, from Asia all the way down to Chile, Brazil, the continent. Against South Africa and Ghana are 2 popular destinations for sure. I wish there were more across the continent. Sometimes you have to get a little bit more creative, or there aren't as many large organizations that have presence in the different countries of Africa. But literally, wherever you're thinking about going, like, there's an opportunity and a program for you. I would say start with your study abroad or your international office on campus. Get to know your advisors, make sure they know you. Sometimes I get fully funded opportunities on occasion for students to participate. And so make sure you have your passport. because without a passport, basically all of these in-person opportunities abroad are you can't take advantage of them without it. So, and I'm of the belief that it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it.
I
So,
hear that.
stay ready, you won't have to get ready.
Wonderful.
And the other page that I would just close with this. The most important thing is, you find a place, but make sure that the programming, the assignments, and the work is connecting people to their heritage and their experiences. When I was going to Malawi, I read the book The Warmth of Other Suns by Isabel
Yes.
Wilkerson.
Yes.
So as I'm reading about the Great Migration in the United States and what it was for Black folks, I'm putting that together with the forced migration, obviously, that Black folks had to make from the continent of Africa to the US. And so that added a layer to my experience in Malawi. So if you can be deliberate in the assignments, it really can make a huge difference no matter where you go.
Final thoughts, gentlemen. I mean, the chat is live. The chat is live, and I'm not going to ask anyone else to spit bars, but I want final thoughts to our Black male students who are here, who have joined us. Obviously, they're here for a reason. We want to leave them with the last 4 minutes that we have with something that they can take back and say, yes, today on February 25th, I made up my mind that I'm going to do this for an experience to study abroad. So Marcus, we're going to start with you, go to Shakir, and then end with Devin. But Ruby has already put in the chat that resources and all the information, it's going to be sent to the attendees. So please look out for that information. So Marcus, over to you. And thank you, gentlemen, so much.
No, thank you. So I would say if you're interested in studying abroad, start today. Start now. Again, get with your campus representatives with the Study Abroad International Office. It can be tedious. It can be overwhelming at times, but it is so worth it at the end of the day. And where there's a will, there's a way. When you see some of those sticker prices for the programs, don't let that deter you. People will help you if they see you trying to help yourself. You can use financial aid. Every school has a scholarship, just about that you're probably paying for on your tuition and fees. There's probably an international education fee on your tuition statement that provides money for you to study abroad. So just tap into the resources. They are out there, and I promise you won't regret it.
Thank you so much, Marcus. Shakir?
James asked about the book, The Warmth of Other Suns by Isabel Wilkerson. So I'm giving him that. But I would just say that, back when I was younger, Mobb Deep had a song called The Start of Your Ending. And I think this event is the start of your ending. Get started. Don't let this be the only time you consider this. Make sure you do something because it's going to change your life. And if it changes your life, then imagine how many other folks' lives you can impact by, getting uncomfortable and going somewhere new.
Awesome. Devin, take us home.
Yeah. So my favorite saying I've lived by is why not? Right? Like, why not do something different? And I feel like you never really regret things that you do, because even if you fail, you learn from that. Right? So you never really regret what you do. You only regret what you don't do. Right? And the best time to experience international education is as a college student, where you have flexibility with your days, with your months, your weeks, your time of the year. Once you get a full-blown job, you ain't gonna be going no other country for a month or anything like that unless you work in this field. Okay, you will have 10 days to go on vacation. Ain't no summer break, ain't no winter break. It is cyclical,
right?
And it just goes. So now is the time. And if you make it a part of your life now, then you can build that into a foundation of you traveling as an adult. Your family will travel, right? Your kids will travel. And I think there's nothing better. There's no better book than The Globe.
Awesome. Gentlemen, thank you so much. We hope that you found this panel discussion to be very helpful and insightful. Please do connect with us. We are on LinkedIn. We're on social media. Please get in touch with us if there's anything that we can do to help to ignite you to do more study abroad or education abroad. We're here to help. Thanks to Leaders of the Free World for having this wonderful forum and summit today. And we wish you a wonderful rest of the summit. Enjoy. Please fill out the poll. Fill out the poll. Gentlemen, thank you. Dr. Walker, Dr. Abdullah, Mr. King, y'all rock. All right.